Hey, this is Aaron Price, the CEO of Tech United New Jersey. I am so excited for today's live show. We've got Karen Reef. She's the Vice President of Renewables and Energy Solutions at PSEG, and our friend, repeat guest, Rick Thigpen, Senior Vice President of Corporate Citizenship at PSEG. Very nice to see you. You know, I used to end the show with a high five, but I feel like in pandemic times, it's a little bleak. We're going to start the show with the high five. 1, 2, 3, boom. Good to see you both. Karen, we've had Rick on the show before. Can you introduce to people what you do and what your focus is at PSEG?
Sure. I work, I'm responsible for renewables, which is basically solar, energy storage, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency for PSEG.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of work. Rick, can you remind people what your focus is?
Corporate citizenship. So very briefly, it is government affairs at the federal, state, and local level, charitable and community activities, and the new world of it, they call it ESG, environment, social, and governance activities, which are used to manage risk and to keep investors happy that we have a sustainable path to success.
And that's very in line, obviously, with our focus of conversation today. We're gonna touch on energy efficiency. We're gonna talk about electric vehicles and offshore wind, and also this infrastructure bill and how it affects all these topics. We've got this really exciting challenge together with our organizations, with Tech United New Jersey and with PSEG, on what we call the Better Planet Challenge, giving away a $50,000 startup prize to a company that's advancing electric transportation in New Jersey. So make sure that for those of you watching, you apply to that challenge. No strings attached, and a lot of help from PS along the way on helping your business succeed. So, Karen, let's start on the topic of energy efficiency. And I know renewables, and we talked earlier, backstage, so to speak, about the difference between the supply side and the demand side. But when it comes to energy efficiency and how it impacts the supply side, how do you see those behaviors? Does the source of energy affect consumer behavior, or are these just completely separate areas?
So they're interrelated because they're all part of the green economy. But one side is the supply side. So what you put in, whether it's nuclear generation, solar generation, coal fire generation, gas generation, the latter two, which are much dirtier than the former, or how much you use. And states that have been at the energy efficiency game for many years have seen a considerable decrease in their usage year on year by going after easy fixes that people don't even know the difference of. And in the end, the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. And we want to get that to everybody so that people can save money.
So can you touch on what those easy fixes are? Because we're a tech community, we do some very complicated things, but Ralph Izzo often talks about just caulk your windows. That's a major first step. Like, what are some of the easy wins here before we get to the super technical wins?
So that's a great example. Then the other great example is light bulbs. Replace your light bulbs with LED light bulbs. In our service territory right now, we have, and all of New Jersey is going to have this if they don't have it already, we have promotions in over 250 stores where we're subsidizing light bulbs. When you buy a new appliance, this is like what I can do in my house. When we buy a new appliance, we're subsidizing the difference between a regular and an energy efficiency model, including new heating in your house, new air conditioning. And we take that and we make it available to everyone. So no matter whether you want to order it online, you want to go in a store, you want to, you're in a lower income census area, we have different programs to provide higher subsidies to make sure everybody can take advantage. We also are providing small businesses and large businesses different types of concierge service, from like, I just need a new HVAC, I just want the subsidy, all the way to different types of concierge service. Like, we go in, some of the main streets, we go into the pizza place, the nail place, et cetera, and we say, like, you need this, you need that, and we help subsidize it because the subsidies actually in the end pay off to every single person. So the business or the customer saves money. We clean the environment. And we create a ton of jobs. And these are good jobs that put people on a great career path.
And let me just add one thing that
go ahead, Rick. Yes.
Turn out the lights when you leave a room.
That's, yeah, you're making, at least in my world, a lot of moms happy with that kind of comment. Maybe some grandmas too. But, Rick, we've talked a lot about energy equity and making sure that these solutions, serve the many, not the few. And so how do you see your role, PSEG's role in making sure that the programs that Karen just talked about, others that are coming, address the widest need?
Well, first off, it starts at the big picture level, which is public service, the company which so many people are familiar with from their past as a reliable provider of energy, is going to be a part of their future as well, and a solution to provide universal access to all of these services. Very important. The reason that Karen is doing what she's doing and we're talking about what we're talking about is because of the challenge of climate change, which does affect all of us. It is so important that everybody be a part of the solution, that everybody have access to solutions to use less energy, or the energy they use comes from cleaner sources. And public service is very proud of taking a leading role, as it's done in the past, in providing universal access to these services to all of its customers. Karen just talked about energy efficiency in some detail. And one of the key elements is to make sure that's available for everybody. But we're going to have to constantly think about equity as we adopt solutions to make our lives better. It's both a political necessity as well as a practical necessity. There's no reason at all to leave anybody out of the responsibility to help protect our planet for the future.
So, Karen, what are some areas that are potentially, as we're speaking to the entrepreneurial and the innovation community, what are some of the pain points that come up when it comes to energy efficiency when people are thinking about what they might solve? We've talked to, again, going back to Ralph, we've talked about the area of opportunity in leveraging big data. There's obviously consumer behavior activity, but what do you look at that you say, I wish that there was a fix to this problem?
For energy efficiency, it's just getting the word out there and people really trusting that this is really good, because we get a lot of this doesn't make sense. This is too good to be true. I don't understand. Why are you giving me money to use less of your product? It doesn't make sense. There's no other business that we're aware of that would give people money to use less of their product. So it's really getting the consumer.
What's the answer to that question?
The answer is because the cost benefit pays off. So because you can't store electricity, the last megawatt hour that you make is the most expensive megawatt hour. So at those peak times, if you can decrease the load, you're saving a ton of money for across the environment, across the ecosystem. And then there's so many other benefits with helping the environment, which has true cost savings, saving people money from energy efficiency. And then we're creating jobs and we're creating career paths. And this is all just a win-win-win for everybody who's involved in this value stream. And then there's some really great things. I know one of the winners from one of your contests were looking at deploying their specific technology, which is to go over the window and to help decrease the amount of light that comes into different facilities. And so that'll help people use less energy. So just the thoughts, and that people who are entrepreneurs can think of these new ideas, and then we can help them shepherd it through, is a great opportunity for us, and really fulfilling, to be quite honest.
That's good to hear. I'm glad you brought that up. Wex Energy last year won the Better Planet Challenge, and for the startup founders listening and the entrepreneurs listening, the ability to work with a very large company like a PSEG, it can be challenging. There are lots of ways to get in the door, and sometimes it takes a while to make that happen. So the part of our PSEG's commitment here is to accelerate that process, to help fund them, to help make sure that if they are something that can be deployed, they can help make that happen. Which from the Tech United point of view, we're very proud of that relationship and appreciate both of your partnership there. Is there a time, Karen, that you envision that these subsidies will not be necessary, that sort of the marketplace catches up? And I'm assuming that subsidies are necessary because the cost of production currently for more efficient devices is not, the graph sort of doesn't line up yet, so PS is paying the difference. When do you hope that won't be the case?
So, if you think about it, housing stock and the replacement rate for appliances or HVACs or that sort of thing is like a 15 or 20 year cycle. So, you kind of see it in 15 or 20 years. And I can only imagine that 15 or 20 years from now, people will come up with so much better things that will want to continue on this path. I don't see us, accepting lower cost solutions that will harm the environment moving forward. The other thing is New Jersey right now is a bit behind some other states in deploying this. So we have so much to do to catch up. I think we'll get there rather rapidly because we have the benefit of learning from so many other states on what they've done, so we can get there. But I think we have. I don't see it in my working lifetime that this won't be something that we'll be focusing on.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've got a ways to go. So Rick, when it comes to the local and the federal, the regulatory environment, I want to talk specifically about this infrastructure bill, but maybe as a headline, how do you think New Jersey's doing?
New Jersey's doing quite well. New Jersey is ahead of the national curve in recognizing and adapting to the challenge that climate change is posing, in part because of our 130-mile Atlantic coastline. Our state's embracing of a clean energy future and being on that journey is putting us ahead of many other states. And as Karen talked about, the practical political necessity of not only making the transition, but making the transition work for as many people as possible is also well underway. You mentioned offshore wind, and we're going to talk about that. The state is in the process not only of adopting offshore wind to produce carbon-free electricity, but also of building the infrastructure to make it an economic boon to the state as well. And that's going to be the challenge, because there are those who don't want to make the transition, whether they're making money from the old ways of generating energy or because they don't believe in climate change, or they're afraid of the consequences of changing. So we have some work to do to bring everybody along. And I think New Jersey is doing a good job of making that happen and creating, as Karen said, a win-win-win situation, so that New Jersey is better off for adopting a clean energy future as opposed to, harming itself.
So as it pertains to this infrastructure bill, which is moving along, first of all, Rick, do you think it's going to pass?
I do think it's going to pass. Yes.
So what does that mean? Now that I've been talking about this and Google's been listening to me, I get a lot of headlines about this since our relationship, but I certainly don't know nearly the level of detail that either of you do. But Rick, what does this really mean, first for the residents of New Jersey, but especially for the business community?
Well, it means several things. First off, it means that bipartisanship is still possible in our national government, which is something very important, that we can, disagree, but still work together on behalf of the American people. And there's some things that happened in the past that would call that into doubt. It also means that we are reinvesting in our infrastructure. For those of us who travel, our economy is the largest in the world. We are a prosperous country, but our infrastructure in many cases is crumbling and falling behind. And it's really a shame compared to some other countries. And so by investing in our infrastructure, our roads and bridges, making sure we have, pipes to deliver clean water, we're going to help modernize our economy by, again, creating good paying jobs to modernize the infrastructure. But we're also setting the table to be more competitive in the future, because this infrastructure is going to be an essential part of our economic success going forward. So it's very important for many levels, and some of the specifics in the bill are, at minimum, a very good start along the path of modernizing our infrastructure so that America can continue to outcompete the rest of the world in the future.
So, and by the way, for those of you watching, we are happy to take questions. Drop them in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. Happy to work those into the dialogue. If you have any questions, just let us, leave a comment. Yes.
I'll add one more piece in the infrastructure bill, and Karen is working on electrifying transportation and electrifying school buses. Opens the door for innovation. It also opens the door to us to continue to look for and explore new technologies. And if we set our infrastructure up right, then innovators like yourself will be able to plug into it, so to speak, and really help power our future in ways that we can't even foresee today.
So perfect segue to the EV part of the conversation. You know, Karen, Rick heard me talk a lot about entrepreneurs being focused on building out things that invent the future, that are inevitable. And we've also talked about with New Jersey, if there are inevitabilities in the market, let's be in the pole position, or certainly a leader in the country. And it seems that in many areas, we are not always that leader we'd like to be. So where would you like to see us move in the EV world? When you think about electric vehicles and adoption today versus where you'd like it to be, what are some of those hurdles and how do we get there?
Sure. So for EVs, I would say prior to maybe the last several months, where it's really hard to get cars now because of some of the microchip delays, I would say the biggest obstacle to people wanting to get an EV is range anxiety. So we've all been in our car and you don't know where the next gas station is and you're getting close to zero. Now imagine that if you have to plug in and wait for, and not know where you're going to plug in. It really is a deterrent to people getting new EVs. So what we've the BPU has led us through a process where we got approval to help create more EV charging stations throughout the state, both in terms of they call it fast charging on highways or very close to highways, but also publicly accessible charging. So think about like when you go to the mall, when you go to a restaurant, when you go to a supermarket, so that it is no longer a deterrent. And we are seeing great demand in that area for charging companies. So there's a few charging companies that are out there that are working with building owners, shopping, developers to site these appropriately. We even see gas stations wanting to get involved, which is really interesting as well. So we're really looking forward to that. We're also we see this as a natural extension to our electric system, right? So we have to understand where all the charging is going to happen, when it's going to happen. So you mentioned big data earlier. That's something that we're really interested to learn about, people's charging behavior and how we can incent their charging behavior differently. So for example, if you come home from work, if you go to work, if you come home from work, you
want going to work a thing now? People leave their house. Does that happen still?
People do. People still go to work. Yeah. So when you come home, you want to charge your car, right? You want to make sure that when you leave. But if you're not leaving until the next morning, all you care about is that it's charged when you go to leave. And so there's applications that will allow you to maximize when you can charge your car, so that you don't have to worry about that. So those sort of applications, and then the analysis of that and how we can incent people to charge at 2 or 3 in the morning instead of at a peak time.
So maybe you could explain, what do you think consumer behavior, or in an ideal world, maybe I should ask you, what do you believe that consumer behavior looks like? Is that I come home and I plug something in, but it knows my least peak, my off-peak optimization time, is 2:33 a.m. and it doesn't start charging till that time because it knows I'm not leaving till 8:30 tomorrow?
So we see this in other states that are further ahead of us, who have AMI fully deployed, so that you can get price signals. And we see people changing their behaviors based on price signals if you have the appropriate rates. So the same thing, like if you want to do your wash or your dishwasher or anything like that, you don't have to do it immediately. You might not care. You might want to do it later. And if the price signal is there and it tells you it's going to cost you $10 more to do it now than later, then it's a decision you can make. So putting those decisions in the consumer's hands, I think, is where the future is going, both in terms of energy efficiency, electric vehicles, how that comes together, and how AMI enables that moving forward.
Do you see a future where there is a high enough efficiency battery storage option that will let people store energy at off-peak hours and then deploy it on peak times?
I think it's coming. I think it's probably a little bit out there, but yeah, I think energy storage is probably the next great. Since you can't store electricity, you either have to store. You either need something to store it with, like batteries, or you need to produce it when you need it. So I think energy storage is something that has a future. It's probably where solar was, 15 plus years ago. And it just needs to go through the technology life cycle, that we could figure out how to best deploy it and how to get it less expensive. Right now, I think it's too expensive to have widespread deployment.
So Rick, from your point of view, first, do you believe and agree that electric vehicles are an inevitability? I believe you've already answered this in
Yes.
previous discussions. But
Yes.
if so, then how does New Jersey then become a leader in this space?
Well, like the federal infrastructure bill and like offshore wind, it's by building the infrastructure to make it possible for a variety of businesses to sell here, to make it attractive for consumers. Karen talked about range anxiety being fear number one. To be stranded in your electric car with nowhere to charge and out in the middle of the highway is something nobody's looking forward to. So building the infrastructure to support what we know we want to have happen is the key. We, of course, believe that public service could play a very, very effective role to build that infrastructure to make it so when you have an electric vehicle, you are not concerned about the ability to get the juice, so to speak, to run your car. So that's a very important part. And Aaron, if you step back a little bit, Karen's been talking about making a virtue out of a necessity. Unfortunately, some Americans are slowly coming along to the necessity, but there's been a recent report once again by the UN, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that's making very clear that we are going to face increasingly severe consequences if we choose to ignore this challenge. So the best thing is not just to suffer hardship to meet the challenge, but to make the challenge something that actually improves our lives, creates jobs, makes our lives better to change. And Karen's one of the leaders in helping make that happen. And it's no little challenge for us. But the infrastructure is what it's going to take to make it work in New Jersey. And we believe that we have an important role to play in building that infrastructure so that it's available to everybody and so that everybody can adopt the infrastructure and move away from fossil fuels and increasingly into electricity that has been decarbonized.
I mean, I think that's a great point. By the way, Chef Lizette, nice to see you as well. I know we've seen you at these events for a long, long time, so it's good to have you back. Karen, I want you to lean in a little bit further on this big data issue, because I think this is in particular where our community may have solutions. So if you could talk about, we talked obviously about managing access in peak and off-peak times. Are there other data points or other software-driven solutions that you think play a role in the EV world that the tech community should be thinking about?
Well, I mean, how people charge, where they charge, finding a charger right now, it's like all network based. So if I'm on this network, I can find this. Tesla, for example, Tesla will tell you where all the Tesla chargers are, right? So, so I think understanding all of that, and as you travel through a corridor, so New Jersey has one of the longest corridors, right? But as you go into Delaware, as you go into New York, how do you find chargers throughout that so you can maximize that and actually feel confident going on that trip? I think will be really beneficial. And then how people charge, and then also like getting more range out of all the batteries. So getting the batteries to be more efficient. And we know that all the car manufacturers now are introducing more cars. The range is getting significantly larger than, like, let's say that it was 4 or 5 years ago. So we're looking forward to that continuing.
Excellent. So let's kind of wrap on the offshore wind topic here. Kind of the same line of thinking, like, what is this an inevitability? Why is PS making such an investment here and believes so much in offshore wind? And how does it affect the New Jersey economy? Rick, I'll start with you there.
Well, that's obviously a big deal. And back to my previous point of making a virtue out of a necessity. It is absolutely necessary that we find ways to generate our electricity with increasingly less amounts of carbon in it. And offshore wind is the solution that New Jersey has arrived at to complement its nuclear power. As we sit here today, New Jersey, I think, has successfully completed solicitations for about 3,700 megawatts of offshore wind. We have about a 3,600 megawatt nuclear, site in Salem County in New Jersey. And so we are in the process not only of creating a substantial amount of electricity being generated from offshore wind, but also of building a New Jersey wind port in Lower Alloways Creek that is going to be used to marshal and assemble the component parts to send out to sea. And the vision is bigger than just that, because we are centrally located on the Atlantic seaport seaboard. And it's our hope that our port, which is a deep water port unencumbered by bridges, etc., will be used by every state along the Atlantic coastline that adopts offshore wind. So New Jersey is not only positioning itself to increase the amounts of carbon-free electricity it's generating from offshore wind, but it positioning itself to really make the generation of offshore wind a real economic boon to the state, to create all different types of jobs. It again is going to open the door for innovation in a variety of ways along the supply chain. And the infrastructure is in the process of being built. So it's really an exciting endeavor by New Jersey. We are all in on the future, on our clean energy future. And this is one of the biggest bets we're placing, that offshore wind is the answer. And it is an absolute necessity. And the scientists continue to tell us, if you don't do it, you're going to face increasingly severe consequences, some of which we've had a taste of already. So I'm excited about the possibilities. I really think that the vision for New Jersey is the right vision for our future. And we are excited that public service will be able to play some role in making it happen.
Likewise, and I hope that some of the companies that apply to the Better Planet Challenge may be a part of that process as well. This is a very big industry, and there's a lot of opportunity here. Karen, when you think about the development in offshore wind in New Jersey, as it pertains to the scope of renewables in general, how high is it on the list of things you get excited about?
No, I think it's a great opportunity for new technology, for New Jersey to participate, and for us to provide more green generation into the portfolio. So I think it's a great complement to what we've been doing.
And Aaron, I just want to add, the opportunity for innovation is enormous. I mean, the Ocean Wind 1 project, which we're a part of, it's like a 250 square mile site with these huge wind turbines that rise close to 900 feet in the air that are separated by a mile or so. So fishing and other things can go on in between them. Then you've got to generate the electricity. It's got to be transported on shore and then distributed to the places it needs. So the opportunity for innovation and upgrading and improving in the future is just absolutely enormous. And it's really something to be excited about, because I know some smarter minds than mine are out there thinking of ways that we can improve this to make it more efficient, make it less expensive, and to make it even more attractive that we have this offshore wind farm. It's going to continue.
With change comes opportunity, and there's clearly a lot of opportunity here. And to reiterate this, because I just think it's such a big deal, there aren't a lot of states that I'm aware of. In fact, there's none that I'm aware of where the tech community has a front row seat to work with the utility to see how can they be part of this change, which I'm very, very excited about what we might make happen here. Yes. And by the way, I want to point out that we went off script for like 95% of these questions, so I appreciate both of you playing along here. But it's been a really interesting conversation. Karen, I wonder if in your role, if your friends think you're like the greenest person they know, so I'm going to put you on. I hope that you might be. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, what is the greenest thing that you do? Your greenest activity?
Personally?
Yes.
I'm like, they make fun of me. I make sure we recycle everything in my house. So, and whenever I'm anywhere, I make sure it's recycled. So I would say that would be, we make sure obviously I make sure we take advantage of all the energy efficiency capabilities that we have. And I think we're looking at replacing, we provide anyone in PSEG territory probably knows, you get a report that shows how you compare to your neighbors, and I use more gas than my neighbors. So we're looking at what we can do to decrease that. So I'm trying to use the tools and also trying to use our programs and make sure that they work appropriately, right? So that we just introduce most of them. There's, something for everybody out there. And then I'm really excited, this is kind of off script too, but about what kind of data analytics we can use to help people understand what they can use better. So, if everybody who buys a thermostat also buys 5 light bulbs, and there's 20% of the people who haven't bought any light bulbs, we want to target them and say, is there any reason you haven't bought these light bulbs? And there might be a good reason.
Yeah.
Aaron, Karen is the queen of Karen is the queen of green at public service. Don't call herself short.
I would think so. Although, first of all, I want to point out that as we're talking about the tech opportunity here, you talked about how do you compare to your neighbors, which in the tech world is often been cited as gamification of the utility bill. Right. And so when we talk about the application of services, that's what we're talking about. That's been shown. I don't have the stats handy, but just showing you how you rank to your neighbors in your neighborhood has been shown to decrease energy usage substantially. So there,
Yes.
when we talk about the tech opportunity with the utility, like it doesn't mean you have to go invent a new source of energy or
No.
get into the turbine industry. It's the application of smart technology and innovation.
Or
to
how
the
you
business
bundle, also how you bundle all these things that have been around, but get people to readily accept them, and how you can pull that together is, I think, where there's a huge opportunity.
I think there's this giant consumer, what's often called the user experience, but in your world, it's probably
Right.
more the consumer experience that is ripe for a variety of innovation. And so we're really excited about what's to come. Rick, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are you a green consumer?
I am
Walk the walk, Rick?
I'm a relatively green consumer. I don't want to brag too much or go too far. For starters, I turn out the lights when I leave a room. I turn off the water when I brush my teeth during the brushing. So certainly at the behavioral level, I've learned from my mother certainly to be very frugal about how you use energy. I am a recycler. I'm looking at a new car now, and that's a little bit of a conversation we're having, because there's no question that the electric car is the car of the future. And so yes, I'm somewhat green. I don't want to go too far, but I'm doing my best to get better at it, because I do understand.
Well, in case you're not aware,
it is a necessity.
It is what?
It's a necessity for all of us.
It is a necessity. In case you're not aware, yeah. Karen has a lot of programs that you may qualify for. Sounds like there's not a lot of awareness around them. So I'm assuming one would go to PSEG and dig around. They would find a variety of those programs. Do you want to make a shout out to where people can learn more about that? If that's people aren't as clear, Karen?
So yeah, we have it all over our website. So if you go on our website, you can find out about all our energy efficiency programs. You can find out about our electric vehicle programs. You can always just email me, which I'm assuming you'll have my email available if people need it. So we'll be able to help you, or Rick will then just send it to me. But yeah, we'll make sure that. But on our website, there's a tremendous amount of great information of how you can take advantage of it.
And Aaron, let me just jump on that. It is so important for people to understand the public service, to be a partner in helping people manage their energy use, reduce their energy bills, and be a part of a clean energy future in New Jersey. That's great for our business, and it's great for our state. And our name is public service, and this is one of the most important public services that we can provide. So what Karen's doing is not little at all. We take it very seriously, and the better we do at it, the better our business is going to be in the future.
I'm glad you bring that up, because in our working together in this partnership, I've had a chance to meet several folks at PSEG, and it's been great to put many faces of passionate, smart believers in what we can do better together, in front of this community, and I genuinely appreciate it. I'm glad that to me PSEG was sort of this big nameless, faceless entity that I just got a bill from, and now I see that there is a significant amount of passion and interest, and dedication to innovation and making the state and the region better, and we genuinely appreciate that. I was going to point out before that
I can confirm to your listeners.
You probably beat me, Karen. Yes, go ahead.
No, I just want to confirm to your listeners that you do pay your electric bill.
I don't know. I've been sending them to you, and then I don't know. I don't hear anything. Yes, of course I do. Of course I pay them. Of course I pay them. Hoboken had a promotion for a while where they were giving out composters, and there was a picture of a composting unit, and it had no perspective. And so I thought, great, I would like to compost. I'll sign up to get my free composting unit. And so we went to wherever they were giving them away, and it was this enormous, basically trash can. And my wife was like, what did you think we were getting here? And I thought it was like an apartment-sized composter, which it turns out isn't a thing. So, if you're doing an advertisement, put like a quarter in the picture so people realize how big the item is. Anyway, slightly off topic, but I do try to be very green. I really appreciate the partnership with PSEG. Karen, it's great to have having the show. I hope we welcome you back many times like we have Rick. For startups listening, PSEG really means business they want to work and support with local startup companies, with the tech community, and understand how we can build what we talk about, build a better future for all together, the embodiment of Tech United New Jersey. So apply to the challenge at techunited.co, check out the Better Planet Challenge, win $50,000. More importantly, get a chance to be mentored and get a faster track to access inside the doors of PSEG. So we'll end with the famous high five. Rick, Karen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I hope we'll see you soon. 1, 2, 3.
Always a pleasure.
Boom. Be well. And that's a wrap.
Aaron, you know